Hey, this is Ryan Black, and I'm going to be running through various ways to create risers. We'll do 3 today. You can see the file name here in Pro Tools, and we're going to get started. These are just going to use stock plugins and audio suite modifications in Pro Tools, as well as some automation. And I'm going to start by just adding 3 or 4 mono tracks, audio tracks, and a stereo master fader here. So there's my tracks, and looking at our edit window, we can get started here, always labeling tracks. Like that. And the first thing I'm going to do, I have this set up to look at time, and I'm just going to zoom in so I have a little more fine detail on what I'm looking at. Go to grid mode with option 4, and I'm going to select, let's just say, a bar. So we'll go 2 bars in length, and we're going to create white noise. So we're going to do 3 effects today. One is using noise, one is using a tone, and one is using transient sounds and samples. So the signal generator here, we can go into white noise. Listen to it. Sounds like that. And we're going to add that to our track. And what that's going to do, since this is an audio suite plugin, it's going to actually write white noise for that entire section that we have selected. So you could select a smaller amount, you could select all of this, whatever you want. It's going to write white noise there. So you hit render, and you'll see white noise at negative 4.6 decibel peaking point coming in there. It looks like that. Great. A very simple thing we can do here is white noise has very little character. So if I use my time compression expansion tool, which you can do option 2 a couple times to get to as well, you then can take this and stretch it. So now I've just made it 3 bars long, and it'll add some just artifacts. You can see that in there. So now we've got a little timbre going on, and that's great. That's what I'm looking for here. Just making a quick group so I can bring down my faders a little bit. Cool. So we got a good start. Now, if we want, we could add some plugins in. I have my insert set up here in the edit window. You can do that by clicking right there, adding your inserts. That way you don't have to switch back and forth quite as much. When I'm mixing, I definitely don't like to work this way, but when I'm creating sound effects and things like that, it works well. I'm just going to play around here a little bit. So something like adding some delay can be cool, and we'll set that range on the plugin now. So I turned down the level a lot so you can hear it. And I have this set up here to be loop play mode. You can right click on that and set that up so whatever I've selected will loop. And then a very simple thing we might do is you can use your smart tool, command 7, and put in a big fade like this. You can see I'm in grid mode, so it's snapping to these grid points. If you want to punch out of that, you hit option 2, and now you're not in grid mode. And you can set that to go wherever you want. Using the grabber tool, you can then bend that curve. And what risers will do is they will add tension underneath a part. They often introduce a next section of a song, and they very, very, very often sort of look like this, where there's this exponential curve that ramps up in the file. And so I just created that. Boom. Now, what we might do is take this whole thing, holding down option, copy it onto another track, and then grab an audio suite plugin here and let's say do a quick pitch shift and pitch shift it up a little bit. And now we have 2. And I'm watching my master, making sure that that is not peaking, which it's not. And we have a riser. So you can build these however you want. This is a really simple one. And we'll do a couple things on the output here. So I'm going to go in, select all my tracks here, holding down Shift and Option. I'm going to add a send bus 1, let's say. You could also, actually, I'll do it another way. This is the old way to do it. You can add a new track, and then you can make that, you can assign that track to be, for example, mono, an auxiliary input, samples. I can call it reverb, make it 4.5 second reverb. And so what it just did is it added that reverb track here, which I definitely don't want there. And it has this input. And now on my inserts, I could add, for example, a deverb plugin for some reverb. That would go mono to stereo, and a delay like that. That delay can be set to wet or somewhat wet, I like, and then we'll bring up the feedback so it has some delay to it, and then let's see what happens here. Oh, we don't hear it. And we don't hear it because we don't have the actual sends turned up on those. So we go to View here, Expanded Sends. We can look at, that one's on Send B, and we can send a little bit of that. And now we should hear it. Boom. These 2 tracks are not being used right now, but I'm just setting them up. And I also have that delay here. So the next thing I might do on this one, you go, okay, that's pretty cool. I like it. I've got this shape coming on. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm going to pitch shift the lower one a little bit as well. I find the pitch shift is really useful in these types of things. Cool, great. And we got that little sweep that comes in here. Riser 2. Select these. I'm just going to shorten them up, tighten them up a little bit. Cool. Boom, we've got a little riser. And then we can take a look at our levels and adjust that. So we're not peaking on our output, but we have nice controlled levels going on there. And then that little time compression expansion that I did at the beginning gives it a little space, a little like in it, combined with the delay. So there's riser number 1 using noise. A last thing that you might do is to use an EQ, and you could use a 1-band. I'm going to use a 7-band here, but you could use the 1-band. And this, I'm going to talk a little bit about automation. So if we go into auto here in any plugin in Pro Tools, this is a sort of a legacy thing. There's a way to turn it off in preferences. I'm just used to it this way. These are all the parameters that can be automated. So in this case, what we want is our low pass filter frequency to be automated. So I'll be able to go and swell that frequency up like that. That's my one parameter. Now you can just, hit Option A and select all of these. But I'm going to choose low pass frequency. I'm going to add it. And now that parameter will show up in my track view selector here. Oh, sorry, that's my, no, that's it. Effects 3 is that EQ, 7-band EQ, and here's my low pass frequency. So now you have all the same tools, and you can start to build a sweep. And you can hear now that that's a very different sort of sound. Maybe we start it a little higher, have it come up slowly. And you can get more specific in here with the pencil tool and all those options. For example, you could do something like that or whatever. Or if you change the grid resolution, you can get far more interesting with your manipulations. So something like that. And we add that back in with the other one. And you get something cool. All right. So there is number one. And then what we would do is select the time that you want to export. I'm going to go back to grid mode here. The time you want to export, which you want to make sure that includes your reverb tail. And then file bounce to disk, which is also keyboard shortcut here, Option Command B, I believe. Yep. Bounce to disk if you want to make the MP3 version, and you definitely want to go interleaved audio here. Make sure your settings are appropriate for your session, 24-bit 44.1 at least. And then a very important thing is to make sure it's saving in the correct folder and that it is named something appropriate. So for this one, I will name it Noise Riser 1. Great. I can even get rid of the rest of this since it's in the folder. But you could leave all of your tag information too. Bounce it out. This is the ID3, which is tagging for MP3s. I don't know what that is, but anyway, here we go. Boom. And it bounces it out. And now, if I go to my session, which I know you can't see, I'll bring it up in a second. You can see I have the session and I have, that's the wrong one. Oh, this is 9 risers. Risers. And there is the noise risers wave and MP3 file. Sorry. I was practicing earlier. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I'm just going to hide these tracks. I don't need them anymore. And we'll move on to our next one. So this is going to be one using a tone generator. And is a little different and can be really interesting. I would highly recommend finding a chord or something as well, like a piano sample or instrument or a guitar chord can work really well, and that will sort of relate to the third option that I'll show you. But in this case, I'm just going to hit it with a tone generator. So very similar to what we did on the previous one with white noise, but we're going to start with a sine tone. So something like that. Oh yeah, there we go. And that click is the time looping as this allows you to preview that. So there, I've got a little thing going on. It's about 2 bars long. That's excellent. And what I think I'll do here, I should have named this track first. Sine tone 1. Is we're going to we're gonna get some interesting things happening with this. So I'm gonna duplicate this track a couple times, and we're gonna stack these different sine tones, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. So if I take one of these, for example, and I leave it, it's great. Now I'm gonna take the second one. So I've got and I'm going to pitch shift this, let's say up an octave and a third, which would be 15 semitones. So that'd be a minor third. So together, these sound like this. Then I can take this next one, and I can go up to which is a octave, and it's a fifth above that. And we can check that. Here it's right there. Cool. So now I have this chord. That's pretty neat. Now, what I'm going to do with this, I have this low one here. We'll do one more. duplicate, and what I'm going to do with this new duplicate is actually pitch shift it down an octave, which is 12 semitones. Come on. So a lot of pitch shifting going on here. Now I've got this low. You can't even barely hear it. But I'm going to go back to this to the Audio Suite plugin here, and there's some things that you might not have plugin-wise here, but TRANSIENT you will have if you have Pro Tools. And we're going to add some distortion to this low one. Yeah, and make sure you're not peaking on your output there. I'm just trying to get some sort of distortion in that file, like that. Oh yeah. Now it's starting to happen. Then, one thing that will really freak some things out is if you go in and play with some of these other effects, the harmonic ones. I'm not going to sit and play around here, but lo-fi can do some really neat stuff. And TRANSIENT, you can keep going with that until you have just insane noise. So there's a bunch of things worth checking out there. And then, like I mentioned, there's some other things I have going on, other plugins. Now, I'm going to expand this, which adds that to it, and then I'm going to actually bring it back. So all I'm doing is adding a bunch of noise underneath that will give it this low-end rumble like a jet going off. And so I'm really trying to create that sort of sound. Now, what I'm going to do with this one, do something a little different here. So group all of these. Oh, I didn't group them. I just selected them, holding down Option, and then hit Command F, and now I can add a fade in, fade outs, whatever I want to start creating that. And you can see that 400 milliseconds is much too slow, but we can kind of figure out what we want to do. So if I go to, say, 6,000 milliseconds, which is 6 seconds, that should start to fit in there better. And now I can adjust, holding down Shift to select these. I can adjust all of these so I get this sort of thing. Of course, at the end, you might have heard that little click. Definitely don't want little clicks. So get rid of all the little clicks. There's a couple ways to do that. You can use fades. You can adjust to a 0 crossing. And you can hear, I still have my, something, I think, going through reverb. I think it's one of these, maybe all of them. Bam. And I don't mind if there's distortion. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking specifically about clipping noises from bad editing. So now I'm going to select a little bit of time. I've got this set up to do loop mode here. So oop, see, that overload is bad. Yeah, we're there. Now we're close. Great. So bring this back in, get a little more timbre. Now, you can also take some of these and pan them out. Going on. So now it's got a little width to it. All right. So next up, let's real quick put in some. Well, I don't know. That's pretty good, actually. Maybe we just sit with that one. I think it's this one that's actually causing that little clipping sound, which I don't. Yeah, right at the end there it goes. I'm not sure why, but oops. Cool. So let's get rid of that little guy. I don't want to S-curve, just that is fine. And nice, okay. There we go. And then, because I'm in slip mode, I can move the file so it lines up perfectly. And one thing to play with and recommend is actually having these not start and end exactly together. Try to make some slight differences in how things move around, and it will make your sound much more full. Okay, so we've got a riser that utilizes sort of a chord and this, and then what we might do is come back in underneath. I'll go back to here. I'm just going to make a really short pink noise, which is sort of a lower sound. Bam. So I just built that into my session. A lower sound than white noise. And then take that, make it the length of this thing. And then what I'm going to do is add in a Verify plugin, which sort of acts like tape. So in this case, it's that kind of effect. And do that. I'm going to bring up the gain. And then I might cool, let's do it again. Bring up that gain again. And then what I'm going to do with this one is go into other and reverse it. And remember, oops, I've got the reverse plugin up, but I didn't choose to do it. So I select the file I want and I hit render. It reverses it. And remember, I said you're looking for this sort of sweep shape, right? That's the key to having a good sounding, or that's like a good starting spot, I guess, to having a good sounding riser. And so what that means is that if you see the opposite of that, you see something that starts off like this with a hard transient and then fades off in time, if you reverse it, you get generally a cool sweepy riser sound. Like that. So that's just white noise, time compression expansion, then it's slowed down over time and then reversed. That's this sine tone pitch reverse thing going on down there. And if you want to hear the whole thing, it sounds like this. I don't know that I'd leave it up, but we'll find out. You know, like all the ending stuff where it kind of flattens out. So I'm just utilizing the end of it, and then I might go in here and put in a little fade. That's probably a little much. Let's go a little less than that. Even like this is probably fine. So it sort of sneaks up. And I think maybe getting my grid a little bit smaller. Boom. Cool. So now, holding down Option, I can adjust the height of all my tracks here. If I do that, I've got this cool little ditty. Boom. And as we did with the other one, we copy the time that we want with the reverb time, and Option Command B, and we've interleaved. It keeps all of this data, and we will call this Tone Riser 1. And in the assignment, you would do 3 of these in different ways. Completely start over. Do not start with the same thing. Try something different. That would be my suggestion. So do one with sine tone generators, do one with a guitar chord, do one with a reversed guitar, just a single chord, and do one with like a keyboard sample. Boom. Bounce it out, and we go to our file here, and we can see we now have Noise Riser 1. And Tone Riser 1 and Noise Riser 1. Now, I find that in using samples, I actually prefer when they're dry and they don't have those reverb tails. So that's something to keep in mind. I end up adding the reverb, but I like to have control over it. All right, so we've got some things we tried. Let's do one more here. And this one's going to be a little different. I'm actually going to utilize audio that I'm about to record. So hopefully with the screen cap. This will all come through. I've got to figure out what channel I have this all going to. So this initial vocal here, believe if I go into A.1, I should see it. I do. That's great. That's what we want. Okay. This has some external processing, but we'll do it. So what I'm going to do here is just record a couple sounds that are transient. And what transient means is they have a sharp attack and then they decay. So the attack is significantly louder than the rest of the sound. This is very obvious on percussion instruments, as well as plucked instruments, anything that sounds plucked. So a guitar with a pick that is not an electric guitar, like an acoustic guitar, that sound. But anything that you might make a plosive sound to start will also work. So bing, 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 something like that. Bing will work. And so we're going to take a quick look at those. So here we go. Just going to bring this down so I don't like feedback anything too much in the system here. And let's do it. Bing! Pew! So that last one peaked a little bit. Oops. All right. Oh, I'll do this one too. Oh! Boom. So now I've got these samples. I just created them, and they are going to be awesome. So get out of Record Enable here. In Pro Tools, if you hit Tab, it will tab to the next transient if you have that option selected. Command E is going to divide at that point. So I'm trying to get my samples cleaned and right at the beginning. So I tab, Command E. Here's that little clock that I think I distorted, but here's me talking. So that last one peaked a little bit. Oops. And then here's boom. Now go right here, boom. Get rid of me just chatting here. And now we have all these distinct samples, and we can go in, clean these up with our trimmer tool, which is option 2, and get rid of that. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different samples we can work with. So now check this out. I'm going to go to Other and Reverse, and this is what I said. We're looking for that shape. So you can see, like if we look at this sample right there, it's got that transient at the front, and then it sort of decays out. This one has it significantly. So if we reverse this, so here it is. Now, check this out. Or this one. Just that. I can make that shorter. I don't need all of the stuff. Render it. Boom. Bam. We've got this little woodblocky sound. Render. Now, you got to be careful of these clips and stuff that will happen, but clean this guy up a little bit. Got it selected. Render. 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 Boom. Okay. So now check this out. How cool is that? How simple is that? And you can do this with any cymbal crash in a song. And what makes things like this awesome is that if you're in a track and you utilize something from that track, it organically fits with the track. And that's you know, in pop music, you can get away with a lot of risers that basically everyone is using, just white noise and things. But if you can do something that's unique to that specific track, it's unique. So now I might come in here, get back into absolute grid mode, and start to, well, actually go into slip mode and get all of the ending points here lined up. And because these are all different material, getting them lined up perfectly means they have differences, not like the sine tones in the previous example. Oop. Oh, well, actually, time compression expansion tool. Why not? Let's see what it does. Now, let's just take a listen to this. Now, let's take that and let's pitch shift it down. Okay, cool. And then we will crush it. Boom. And we still have to clean up the end. It's frustrating that it's boom, but that should do it. Yeah, great. So now we have this cool thing going on under there. Yeah, you can adjust it. Just labeling some things so I know what's going on here. Kind of like that one the best, actually. Boom. I don't really like this guy, actually, at all. I think it sounds weird. That boop, and that's okay. That's part of the process here. Let's bring in something else and see how that feels. I like that better already. That's my little war. Okay, cool. So I got a weird idea I'm going to try with this one. So I'm going to reverse it again. Then, cool. Then we're going to take it and we're going to apply this pitch shift verify, which is going to take the speed down like that. Then we're going to reverse it again. And now we have something that goes like this. Now we can go into our tracks here, select them, shift option, boom, bus, reverb 4.5 because I built that track. I don't know why it didn't add it. That was weird. And we're starting to get something cool. Now, I know this is all moving maybe a little bit fast or maybe a little bit slow. depending on sort of what you're doing. But in general, I think if you're working with Pro Tools and you're doing this type of work, or any DAW, this stuff takes time. And it's important to realize that you need to give yourself time to make something really cool. So I'm moving pretty quick here and just kind of going for it and on some of these. But in general, I would at least spend 30, 40 minutes minimum on each of these to really get something that's cool and fits with the track and utilizes samples from the track and things of that nature. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. As you work on these types of projects. Let's see. It's pretty neat. Then, let's see. Let's go in. We'll get this. Come on. This one. Boom. And I'm just tightening up some of my fades and stuff here using the Smart tool real fast. Listen to these. Cool. Then nice. So then we select and the amount of time we want to export. Option Command B, and we'll call this sample riser 1. And it'll bounce it out. Boom, it's done. It'll be in our folder. So next up, I have one more secret extra one. Shift Option I. Nope. There we go. Shift Command I. Sorry. There's a folder, and in that folder, I have a couple symbols that I've put together. These are just things I thought were cool. Make Pop Music was a couple of them. I think there's a couple from Contact. And so I'm importing those, and you might have noticed I hit Convert. I'm going to create them into a new track, and I want to show a couple quick tricks here. So first off, it put them on mono tracks. Oh, no, it didn't. It's stereo where they were supposed to be. Cool. Yeah, great. So if you take a bunch of samples, you put them in like this, and you want them to line up, a really cool thing you can do is basically take your longest one and select all of your tracks in the same way, like this. Then get your plugin that you want to use, reverse plugin, for example, right here. And if you hit render, if you think about it, so it renders this entire time that is selected. So this track, the space hit A1, the beginning is going to end up all the way over here. So if you extrapolate that to all of these tracks, all of these are going to end up lined up perfectly. Boom, and there you go. So check that out. Pretty fancy. Now, you might have to trim the beginning, but bam! And real quick, yes, I'm overloading, but that's just a thing to deal with. Make a group with Command G. We'll call this sample group. We'll bring these down a little bit. See. And so if I mute this first one, oop, now it's muting the whole group. Hold on. Boom. They hit like that. Then you can go in, you can manipulate all of those. But one thing that's kind of cool, if you have a bunch like this, is give them some panning. Play around with that and see if you can get more width to your situation. Bam. That one hits pretty hard. That's pretty cool. Trying to find which of these really got that high end, that white noise at the top. There we go. And we bring back in this long guy, the first one, which is going to add this like low end rumble. Cool. Then we take all of our tracks here, for example. Oh, this is about to get crazy. I just had an idea. We'll take that and we go and we add a little reverb to it. Which has, I don't even know if, oh, this was not supposed to get lowered somewhere in there. I lowered my reverb. We'll set that up with our reverb again. I'm not sure where that went, but oh, it's still there. It's up here. So you hear that at the end, how the reverb goes sha cha 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 cha. Right? Play it again. Now a really cool effect, and this is used by chain smokers a lot, is actually to utilize that. You can see I'm overloading a little bit, which is a little annoying. Come on. Let's try again. Okay, no overload. Great. All right, so that's one. That sounds good. I'm okay with that. So I might take that whole bit and this whole bit. Oop. I don't know why it's being weird, not letting me select time. Okay, so check this out. So I do a bounce, Option Command B, interleaved. I'm going to call this sample riser 2. But here's the cool part, the next part. So we're going to take that and its reverb, and I'm going to do a Shift Command I to import. I'm going to go back to the session here, and I'm going to import the one I just exported. There's probably a way to do this a little bit faster, but it works for me. So sample riser 2, we want the wave version. We want to copy that in, and it's going to put it into our audio files folder. So I just re-imported it, and I'm going to put it on a new track. And this is the part that I think is really neat. So I'm going to first take these original ones and just mute those for a second. And we'll just listen to what we just imported. That's cool, right? But, so what I'm going to do is go right here, and I'm going to do that. Now, like I mentioned, this is an effect that if you listen to the chain smokers, you'll feel this. You'll hear this a lot. This is the part I want. Right? It's pretty cool. Now take that, the end with the delay into the reverb, reverse it, and you get this. And then I'm also going to reverse this other one, which was the hit. Here, I'll let you hear this first. So check this out. Boom. Then you nail it with this on the, you have this cut out on the and of 4, and this come in on 1. And you get this chow 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 chow. And so that reversed, sort of pre-verb reversed sample is a really cool way to do a riser. The last thing I'll mention before we jump out of here. Oh, and so then you would take that and you would bounce that, which you could also throw into the reverb if you wanted. Boom. Pretty cool. You can even get both of those because this is totally silent because there's no reverb or anything. So I'm going to bounce that out, and we'll call this sample riser. Actually, 2.1 is a good name for it because it really is based on the first one, the other one. And now it's out, and just go check in our folder, make sure that everything is where we want it. It is, and we're good. The last thing I'll mention is if you're doing a track, what can be very neat is if you have a kick drum or some sort of low part, you can sidechain a compressor onto the riser, and then as that riser builds, you hear it pumping with the track, where it's like shoo, 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 shoo. Right? So if you have that snare that's like cha 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 or whatever, you can have it go cha 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 as it pops out. So it can be a really cool addition underneath like a more traditional riser. So here's this one. And then pretty cool stuff. So hopefully you learned some stuff there. Once again, this is Ryan Black. I appreciate you spending some time checking out the video here, and hope that you pulled away some aspects of that that you can put into your own production.